With me now is Christian Leuprecht, professor at the Royal Military College of Canada and Queen's University. His latest book is called Intelligence as Democratic Statecraft. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Marcia.
So reports are showing that the attempts at interference were not successful, yet here we are. There are calls from the opposition that the Prime Minister should have a full-blown inquiry into this. Where do you stand on it?
So look, this is the canary in the coal mine. It's kind of too late to go back after we know that the outcome of an election has actually been influenced by foreign interference and then say, oh, this is not really what we had in mind. We have a situation where effectively we had an election where ostensibly the Prime Minister may have been aware that money may have been flowing directly or indirectly to his own party or candidates of his own party in support of that election. And that is, of course, deeply problematic. We have a situation where there are allegations that individuals were coerced and bussed into a riding association meeting who were not resident in that riding in order to potentially influence the selection of a particular candidate. We have allegations that election laws were broken and that perhaps crimes were committed in terms of the way financing was conducted of one or more particular candidates in this country. These are pretty serious allegations and go far beyond what is legitimate democratic organizing in the democratic process.
So what is your position then on the way the Prime Minister is handling it? Is an investigation the only way to get to some of those unanswered questions?
So in the highly partisan environment that we live in, and given that parliamentary committees have limited remit on who they can call and the documents they can ultimately request, I'm not sure that Canadians have the full confidence that a parliamentary committee in and of itself can get to the bottom of this. At the same time, I suspect that there's reticence to call a public inquiry because a public inquiry is likely to show that there are members of the political class in this country, perhaps both on the sides of the Liberal as well as the Conservative Party, who have received personal benefits, monetary benefits, in terms of their relationship with China, and organizations in this country that have received such benefits, as reporting by the Globe and Mail and others has shown. And the example of Anthony Robb in Australia should be one cautionary tale in Canada, a minister who negotiated very favorable terms for Australia in relations with China, and it subsequently came to light that he himself drew significant personal benefit from that relationship.
And it gets sticky because the Prime Minister says questions on Chinese interference is racist. What's your reaction to this?
So look, ultimately, there are questions about what is legitimate democratic organizing by diaspora groups in this country, and what are areas where there are civil or criminal offenses that are being committed that are clearly in violation of the laws of this country. One of the elements that we need here is clear deterrence for any such activity to occur in a future election to preserve the integrity of the process. And it would appear that the current mechanisms in place may be insufficient to do so based on the public reporting that we have seen. And so an inquiry to ensure that Canadians can have confidence in legislative and institutional changes that may be necessary to this effect will be indispensable to ensure that legitimacy. But an inquiry will take time. It might take 2 or 3 years, and it will present considerable challenges in terms of some of the classified and top classified material that the inquiry will likely need to see and would then need to comment on.
And does it have the potential to sour relationships between Canada and China further?
Well, this is certainly, I suspect, one of the reasons why the Prime Minister is reticent to call a public inquiry. Once you have an inquiry, then the political process loses control over both the narrative as well as the substance, whereas in parliamentary committees, they retain a certain degree of control. And so I can see why an executive may be reticent to have that sort of a public process when it feels that it could jeopardize either its own personal interests or perhaps the interests of the country. But the question is, if we weigh the interests of the integrity of the democratic process against our relationship with China, then I would have to think in a democracy, the integrity of the process must always win out.